Hi, I'm Sam. I'm the co-founder of Kingdom Impact Lab and the person that is stewarding the L.I.G.H.T framework. And in this video, I'm going to explain what L.I.G.H.T is and contrast that with what L.I.G.H.T is not. The purpose of this video is, well, I'll hold my hands up and admit it. The purpose of these videos is for me to teach L.I.G.H.T so that I can deepen my own understanding about what it is, so I can then communicate the idea and the concept more succinctly to the people that I interact with. I know that nobody's watching these videos yet, which is great for me because I just use these videos as a way to explore what the ideas are, explore what the ideas mean, and then take it from there. So that is the short intro, so let's get into it. So what exactly is L.I.G.H.T? So I'll start off by explaining what L.I.G.H.T, the acronym, stands for. Then I will explain what it does and the applications of it, and then I will go into explain what L.I.G.H.T is not. So first of all, L.I.G.H.T is an acronym that stands for love, integrity, gratitude and generosity, humble service and transformative excellence. These are different characteristics which Christians can apply in their day-to-day lives in order to pursue Christ-likeness in everything that they do. And so what this framework does is it gives Christians a practical framework, a system, a way to build habits in the present moment, so you can make decisions without being influenced by external pressures. You can make decisions in the present moment even if it goes against what is your self-interest, in order to pursue Christ-likeness. The L.I.G.H.T framework essentially is to give you an anchor, an absolute, something that will be the same for me in my life and my business, and the same for you in your life and your business, and the same for everyone that we interact with and speak to as well. And it is essentially the North Star to make all decisions on, from the top down in the company. It's a framework and a system to make all the decisions when you apply to your marketing. It's a system which you can anchor in as a way to make sure all your decisions within your company, within your sales, within your funnels, within all of the automations and things you do in your business when you're working with clients, always align with the pursuit of Christ-likeness. And the reason for this is because one problem that I have noticed, and I'm not the only one that noticed it, I'm just standing on the shoulders of giants that have come before me, is that it is extremely common that Christians will go to church on Sunday and they behave differently within church, the way that they act, the way that they interact with each other, the way that they talk to each other, the way that they offer to do things for each other, the connection, the fellowship, the focus on relationships, the focus on doing things that glorify and honor God at the expense of doing things that go in your own self-interest. And we all typically feel that about how welcome we feel in the church, how people are happy to see us, they greet us when we're new, they want us to go out with them afterwards, they want to connect with us, they want to learn more about us. But when people step out of the church and go back into their day-to-day lives, they go back to their old selves. They revert back to who they are outside of the church walls, outside of the sanctuary. And my hypothesis is that this is because the spirit, I call it spirit, but essentially what I'm mean by the spirit here is that this is an underlying force that we cannot see, but is absolutely there, that influences our decisions on a subconscious level. And there's a spirit within the secular and transactional world and culture, and especially in the business world, where, as any business owner knows, that typically the most important metrics within your company is the bottom line and your profits. And so it was Carl Jung who said that, I'm paraphrasing what Carl Jung, one of the renowned psychologists of early 20th century, I forget where he was, but essentially he said that whatever you put as your highest order aim, the most important goal that you're pursuing, or in other words, the North Star of your life, your business, what it is, whatever you put as your North Star, what you focus on the most, becomes your God, whether you are aware of it or not. And this supports what it says in the Sermon on the Mount, where it says that you cannot serve two masters, you cannot serve both money and God. And the point being that when your business operates around the sole purpose to make revenue and hit weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual targets, and the most important and the only goal that you have really is to make money, profit margins, increase your bottom line, and everything else then is secondary to it, it becomes virtually impossible to inject your Christian values into the business when your North Star is bottom line and money. And that's why the L.I.G.H.T framework is so important, because there's so many Christians out there that do want to integrate their Christian values into the work that they do, but they don't know how. There's no practical way for them to do it. There's no systematic way that they can introduce it into their business. They are afraid that it would come across as being too preachy, and they don't want to overtly start quoting the Bible or bringing religion into their business, especially when their team may not be Christians, or the customers and clients they serve may not be Christians or different religions. And so they're afraid that it might damage their reputation. They may view their values as something philosophical and incompatible with business and the way that they do things. And there's a whole bunch of other things that I can go on and list where the problem is. So the next natural question here that arises is, well, how do I know that this is a problem? Well, like I said earlier, that I did not come up with this idea myself. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants that have done a lot more research into this than I have. But just because people have done the research and written books and studied it and made observations, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is true. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true for you in your situation as well. And so what I have observed myself, as I'm part of a few different groups. I'm part of a small cell group through the church. I'm part of a WhatsApp group which is about workplace and business stuff for Christians here as well. And something that I observe is that in the business group that I'm part of, in the WhatsApp group, I've attended one meeting, like a quarterly meeting that they have, and everyone there is so eager and enthusiastic, and they want to share things and they want to do things. But the only solution that was really given to them are already established systems that exist. And it's kind of, there's something called alpha in the workplace, I think, and they go in and have lunchly meetings and talk to people and this and that. And well, that's all well and good because you're working with people within the company internally. And then there's other different, there was someone else there that wrote a book, and funnily enough, I went through the book very quickly, just looked at the pages and what it was all about in a couple of minutes. And I wanted to speak to the author and ask him some questions because we aligned on so many things, but he just was not interested in answering my questions at all. And he basically shooed me away so he could talk to somebody else, which again, I find that to be a bit unusual, because the book that he wrote directly aligned with what I'm trying to do, except for the purpose of Light here would be a practical framework to apply what was written in the book. And so a common problem with books like that people write in order to help the Christians in the business integrate their faith with what they do, is it's very theological, it's all very just to conclude the thought I'm trying to make here, is that I've read a lot of books. I read a lot of books. I have done all my life, and a lot of the books that I've read about integrating your Christian values into the work that you do, very few of them actually provide a tangible solution, in my opinion. They all seem to come across and say, they make the case and the argument of why you need to do it based on theological grounds. They then go on to explain what the problem is, which is a sacred secular divide, where people would go to church on Sunday and then, on Monday morning they're back to normal, which is what I've explained previously. And then out of their 250-page book, they might have 4 or 5 pages. I'll be generous, they might have 10 pages on the practical application of this. And one of the common practical applications would be that you have to have heavenly KPIs to focus on. And then they list a few examples, like the number of lives touched, or the number of people that you impact in this positive way, and all of these things. And I understand, I get it, because this is the process that I went through several months ago in learning what I'm doing. But I also find that the application of something like this with very philosophical business KPIs that are anchored in your faith, they don't necessarily come to fruition if you are an established business and you are generating you're generating, say, 7 figures a year or more, and they don't work practically because, well, if you have a company and you've got different departments in your company, and you have leaders and managers within each of these different systems, well, they have their own targets to reach, and they have to hit their targets because the company needs to generate the revenue to continue. So you can't really go in there and say that you're going to change all the KPIs straight away, and that you're going to and that you're going to start focusing on the number of people that you help instead of your business KPIs. And that's kind of what I found while going through these books and doing my research and things. And likewise, the concept of the alpha in the workplace is that it's an organisation, it's an NGO, a non-profit organisation, I think, and they basically come to your workplace physically, and the Christians within the company organisation, within the company, would invite their pre-believer friends to attend like a weekly lunch together, where they then talk about faith and ask questions and all of this stuff. And they have some level of success over a couple of weeks of bringing a few pre-believers to Christ, which is fair enough. But that again is something that, in my opinion, that the business owner would they have that deep desire that they want to integrate their faith into their business. And what they're doing is they're bringing this organisation in to give a few presentations and workshops and take people out and talk and all of these things in order to integrate their Christian values and spread it within the workplace. But what exactly is the outcome of that? Yes, a few people do become Christians. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's very limited. It's very sort of localized. It's very kind of, we're bringing these people in, this is what they're going to do in the company, and then after they leave, that's it. And so, realistically, how many pre-believers go on to then become, as it says in I forgot what it is, I can't really quote scripture or things, but in one of the Gospels, it was the story of the farmer planting the seeds, and the interpretation of that was, well, the story of the parable goes that, you know, the farmer was throwing some seeds, some landed on the path, some landed in the weeds, some landed here, and they grew a little bit and died, and then some of them, a tiny percentage of them grew into fertile land, and then they grew and they produced 30, 50, 100-fold more than what was sown. With a point being that the majority of people that become Christians, they don't blossom into the person that would have the biggest influence on as many people as possible. And well, that's just the nature of it, and that's just the reality of it. Most Christians would just attend church and do what it is on the Sunday, and then they go out and then they forget it. I see it all the time. As soon as the sermon starts, the phones come out and people start replying to WhatsApp messages. It's as if they're in church for an obligation and they're not prepared to live it 100%. And I'm not necessarily saying that is a problem, because you know, I'm not telling people how to live or what they should do. That's not my decision to make, and it's not me to judge them for doing it. It's just an observation. And therefore, if we want to plant as many seeds as possible, so that we can then, the more seeds that you plant, just based on numbers, means the higher probability that you're going to have a few of these people that come up, and then they influence far more people, and then that's going to be exponential, especially if you provide them with the tools that they can then go on and apply in their own sphere of influence, and then this has a ripple effect, which is what the vision behind Kingdom Impact Lab and L.I.G.H.T actually is. That we do want to equip business owners with the tools to plant as many seeds as they can, and then to, when people do start to rise up, to be able to nurture them and support them and show them what to do within their own sphere of influence, so they can go and plant seeds as well, and then it has that ripple effect going on. But to do that is extremely difficult by asking an organisation to come and speak internally to your company, and that is another one of the problems that I've encountered. And I think the point I'm trying to make here is that I've explored various solutions myself to this, while to integrating faith with work and business, and I have yet to come across a solution that is practical, scalable, and actually provides tangible business results, and that is essentially where L.I.G.H.T comes in to provide that solution. Excuse me. So, what exactly is L.I.G.H.T? And how is it the solution? So, first of all, L.I.G.H.T is a system that gives Christian business owners a practical way to integrate and, more importantly, apply their Christian values in their life, finances, and business. Specifically, it's a decision-making compass, so to speak, where you can make the present moment decisions that will align with your faith, rather than succumbing to external pressures that may guide you away from it. And this is so important because if you don't do this every day, all the time, you will drift. And I've been studying drift a lot, and a definition of drift would be that you know where you want to go, but over long periods of time you make small compromises and decisions that you think is right at the time, which accumulate and compound until eventually you find yourself in a completely different direction to where you originally were. And I've been studying this a lot because that effectively is the story of my life. It's the story of what I was in my former agency, which completely was a catastrophic failure in the end, after taking all my money to try to make it work. And even while I'm aware of this and aware of the subtle pulls that are misaligning me with what my aim actually is, I experienced this quite recently in Q1 of 2026, where we had specific goals that we set at the start of the quarter. I went through and studied a lot of work on goal setting and how to achieve it, and using different systems which actually work. Check out Ryan Doris if you're interested in that. RionDoris, and he's on YouTube. Emails extremely useful. He has a system called the Flywheel, which I would recommend to check out. I was applying that, but yet I still managed to drift and find myself in a stressful situation and doing the complete opposite of what I wanted to do. It happens, and that's what happens when you allow worldly priorities or things that seem to be urgent in the moment, but they don't actually align with where you're going. And that is why it's so important to have this practical framework to apply in the present moment. So whenever you're faced with something, you know what to do. And if you can then apply that framework to yourself as the business leader, you can then model that same framework down the hierarchy so that everybody in your team would make their decisions based on light and the pursuit of Christ-likeness. Now, you don't have to come out and overtly tell people that it is to pursue Christ-likeness, and you don't have to use the same letters within the light framework. But you can take the concept behind love, for example, which is basically, so the concept behind love and humble service, for example, is that you are doing things for the benefit of the other person more so than yourself. That is what essentially it means. Biblical love is sacrificial love, which means you are prepared to sacrifice your own self-interests for the benefit of someone else. Or you can come up with a term for that within your company structure. And if you can articulate clearly what it is and what it isn't, which is what I can help you do, it means that you can then introduce this all the way down the hierarchy within the company, so that you make decisions based out of Christ-like love, but then the secular company that you're in, or the non-Christians within the company, they view the same kind of concept through the lens of you're doing things for the benefit of the other person, because that's how you should operate. And then they make decisions in alignment with it as well. And you can create this sort of well, first of all, you'd create a set, like a little document or whatever you want to call it, in order to help you make the decisions. And then you know that, and then you teach the people in your company, and then you know that the people in the company are at least trying to make decisions that align with pursuing Christ-likeness, and that's how it would work internally. And the benefit of this is that this is what I heard from a pastor before, was that people don't read the Bible. Christians rarely read the Bible, but people can see Jesus through you and your actions, And so we have a duty and an obligation to pursue Christ-likeness and try our best in all situations to allow us to reflect Jesus in what we do, to allow us to reflect Imago Dei, made in the image of God, so other people can see what it looks like. And then people will notice that our lives are different, our lives are full of joy, our lives are full of meaning, our lives are more connected with other humans, which is a major problem at the moment, the lack of connection. And then people will notice that we have integrity, that we make decisions as an individual and as a company by applying this decision-making architecture into your company structure, that we make decisions based on integrity, even if it means self-sacrifice, because it's the right thing to do. We don't compromise. And what does that do? Well, when people start to notice that, it builds trust. And what is the most important thing in business? Well, it is trust. People buy from those they know I can trust. I can go into a long riff here about why trust is so important and how it's becoming even more of a problem, especially with AI today. And something in particular that drives me insane is when people use AI to trick people into thinking they're talking to a human, to trick people into thinking they're having a personal interaction, when in actual fact they are talking to an AI bot. They are trying to trick people into forming fake relationships with something that is a tool, and that has a whole bunch of bad implications and ramifications further down. So if you do things differently, people will start to notice. And this is how you and your ideas within your company will start to gain traction. Sure, there may be some short-term sacrifice for you in terms of revenue and profit by applying this, but in the long term, it will pay off. Now, here's how you can overcome that objection, that by applying this decision-making framework, so you can align all your actions, decisions, and what you do on a moment-to-moment basis throughout the day with becoming Christ-likeness, which allows you to pursue your eternal vision for yourself and your company vision, which needs to be rooted in your eternal vision of pursuing Christ-likeness. You can introduce this decision-making framework. You know then deep down that you are pursuing Christ-likeness. You know that your team are aligned with your decision-making system as well, which then means that you can delegate decisions to your team more effectively, and you can then overcome one of the biggest challenges that a lot of CEOs in there, from research and speaking to people experience, is that they find that they're still involved in the day-to-day decision making in the company, which means they can't find the time to work on the strategy side of things. This decision making framework will solve that issue to some degree, because you can confidently delegate your decision making to other people, because they're following the same North Star of Christ-likeness in your decision making. And why is it so important? It's because the pursuit of Christ-likeness is an absolute. It doesn't change. The pursuit of Christ-likeness is the same when we read the Romans, Corinthians, and the different letters that are in the Bible, with the early followers, the early disciples and the early followers that were pursuing Christ-likeness 1900 years ago, 1950 years ago to be more accurate. It's the same for them as it is for us, because it's an absolute. And it's the same for us now as it will be in the future for people. And that's why it's so important, because you have that anchor, that solid rock, that foundation. So every time something drifts, you instantly know you need to recalibrate, and more importantly, what you need to recalibrate back to. That's why it's so important. Without it, it leads to relativism, and it leads to people making decisions at the top and not telling other people. And other people not understanding, which leads to miscommunication and perceptions of lack of transparency. It means that you subjectively change what your North Star is and what your mission and vision is and what you're actually trying to do on a regular basis, regular as it could be day to day, month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year, decade to decade. But it keeps changing, it keeps drifting. And if you keep changing and drifting, you can never really be consistent throughout your entire structure, because every human being would subjectively interpret what the North Star is based on their own life experiences, whatever it is, the influences within their sphere. And if it's subjective, it's disunity. That's what I find so profound about this system, is that by having a solid foundation, a solid anchor, which would be light as your framework for making decisions within your company and what you do, having that in place is an absolute, it is objective, it does not change. Whereas without it, if you come up with your set of core values and what the decision making is, everything then is subjective. If something is absolute and unchanging, it causes unity. When people are unified, everyone's working towards the same goal. Everyone knows what they're working towards, which is where you get more progress, more synergy, and bigger, better results. If something is subjective, each person interprets the subjective definition of what it is that you're doing differently, and then there's always subtle and nuanced confusion between exactly what to do in what situation, which over longer periods of time, this compounds and divides and gets bigger and bigger, which causes disunity, and disunity is the enemy of any kind of progress. That's why you need light, and that's what it does. And now the practical application of this, well, the practical application of this, other than these decisions, the decision-making system, is to turn your Christian values into daily actions. Well, you need to align all of this with your company goals. And you don't necessarily need to have the typical kingdom impact KPIs as your North Star, as a lot of the books that I've mentioned previously tell you to do. You can have your business rooted in an eternal vision. And then if your company is rooted in an internal vision, then all KPIs and targets downstream of your eternal vision will be rooted in the pursuit of godliness, Christ-likeness, and whatever it is. So you can still keep your company KPIs to hit your profit margins and all of this. It is just not the priority. The priority is the pursuit of your eternal vision. Your eternal vision, which is an absolute. Your company KPIs, yes, it's black and white, but it is not an absolute. It is not an absolute because it will change over courses of time. And that then circles back to what I said just. Having an eternal vision, which is what you pursue, is an absolute which will cause unity in what you do. Having company KPIs of hitting your targets as your North Star aligns with what Carl Jung was saying earlier about what you have as your highest order aim is what becomes your God. Which means your company KPIs, which are not an absolute over long periods of time, because your company KPIs and targets will change all the time. That's where the problems will start. Now, very, very quickly, because I have a call in a few minutes, the practical application of light in order to get your business outcomes is, it's basically stewardship of your influence and relationships. And what we do when you apply this into your business, in particular your marketing, what we do is we focus on helping businesses to generate real relationships, real connection, real meaningful interactions with people that are associated with your business. We will apply like a system in place, because the reality is that if you have 100,000 people on your email list, for example, how do you give your time and attention to 100,000 people? Well, there's a solution to that, and it just simply follows the 80-20 rule, and you just keep applying the 80-20 rule to each kind of section. That, let's say, a common open rate in the past in email marketing was 20%. which means 20% of people open your email, 80% don't. So let's say that 20,000 people on your email list would open an email. Of that, the 80-20 would apply again to the people that open the email, to people that actually take action or it resonates with, and then you identify those people, and then 80-20 of those people would, and then slowly, and by applying this principle throughout not only your email list but your client base and what you do, you can identify the people in your company, the small percentage of people in your company that give you the highest revenue with the least amount of time and costs on your behalf. These are the people that are your biggest fans. You can then give 80% of your personal attention to these people, because these are the ones that give you the most money. These are the ones that refer most people to you. And these are the ones that are going to be the easiest clients to work with, where you'll develop the long-term friendships and relationships with, as opposed to what most people do, which is they try to focus on the most people at the expense of the people that actually make a difference. But we don't also ignore everybody else, because this is where we apply light, and we then actually try to treat everyone that we interact with through your content, through your marketing, as real humans made in the image of God, which is how we build connection. We will support them, we will do whatever we can to have a positive impact on the people within your company's lives. If people need support for whatever reason, we can actually help them, and I have a system that we can do in order to support people, even if it's nothing to do with what your business is, because a lot of people are struggling and suffering for a variety of reasons. And the tangible outcomes of that system is, well, number one, you start to stand out and you get attention, because how many people are really doing that? Number two, you're actually helping people and giving people support without the expectation of anything in return. And over longer periods of time, you are going to become, you're going to build these relationships, which is going to lead to more first-time sales, but specifically, you're going to have more repeat sales, more retention, more referrals, and just a higher quality of income over the long term. And that is essentially it I'd say in a nutshell, but this video has gone on for nearly 40 minutes, so it's not exactly in a nutshell, but that is just an explanation of me talking through what light is, why we need it, what it does, the area that it solves a problem in, and the practical, tangible business outcomes that you'll get immediately by focusing on the 80-20 relationships in your business, the people who pay you the most revenue, the most loyal customers, whatever it is. That's where you can get the revenue in the short term, and then over the long term, you actually treat people like humans and support them and do things for the benefit to help them have a better life, rather than just marketing for transactional reasons. And by doing that over long periods of time, you will increase your revenue, higher quality revenue you'll get. You'll have higher profit margins because you're getting more repeat customers and more referrals, which means you don't need as much acquisition costs. You don't have to pay your sales team any commissions if you have a sales team in place. And as you probably know, it is much easier and less costly to service someone that's been associated with your business for 12 months than someone that's just new and onboarding you, because they already know the way you do things. And so that is how to do it, and that is how you integrate your Christian values into business in a way that leads to tangible business outcomes while you are planting seeds to an unlimited number of people. That's all. See you next time.